My name is Rachel Heaton. I'm one of the co-founders here with Mazaska Talks. I am a member of the Muckleshoot tribe here in Auburn, Washington. I'm also a descendant of the Duwamish people. Again, with anything else that we start, I think it's always important. We're doing this virtually, but all of us are, we're all on stolen land. And so it's always good to acknowledge that. And so I personally am here on Medicine Creek Treaty Land and Point Elliott Treaty Land. And so I'm thankful for all of you that are here today. Before we get started, I want to go ahead and thank, all of our frontline workers, our essential workers, our teachers, our truck drivers, our gas station clerks, our nurses, our doctors, our hospital cleaners, all of the people that are truly on the front lines during this time. Just all of you stay home. That's one of the reasons we're all here doing it this way, is because this gives us an opportunity to still reach out for people to hear our voices, to continue this work, because as you know, and you'll find out today with all of the amazing speakers we have, that, this work doesn't stop no matter what. These corporations and fossil fuel industries feel like they're deemed essential. And so their work continues, and which means that we have to continue. I want to thank our supporting programs today for helping with this. 350 Seattle, Last Real Indians, Sacred Stone, Rainforest Action Network, the GNU Collection, and I want to thank our techie person, Sulakshana. You guys will hear from her today. She's made all of this possible. So without her, we would all not be here making this thing look as smooth as it is. So we really want to thank her. You might not hear as much from her tonight, but she will be fielding questions throughout the webinar. And if we have time at the end, we will answer those questions. But either way, they will get answered and responded back to, but she will be fielding those. For those of you that are registered in the webinar right now, as it's going on, feel free to ask questions. Go ahead and introduce yourself, say where you're from, and where you are, whose land you're on, what fossil fuel fights are you most familiar with, and just tell us a little bit about yourself, and we get to make this feel a little bit more interactive. So I want to thank Sulakshana for making, this happen. And outside of doing all of this techie stuff, she published a op-ed in the Rolling Stone. She's leading a campaign against Liberty Mutual and these insurance companies that are the silent killers in this fossil fuel industry fight. We have we have Tara Houska, we have Kayah George, we have Chase Iron Eyes, we have LaDonna Allard, we have Anna Bean, we have Matt Remle on here. There's so many amazing people you guys get to hear from tonight, and I'm truly thankful to spend all of this time. So I want to thank all of you that are watching, that are a part of this, and those that are in the webinar, those that are watching the live stream. Once this is done, share, get the message out. We have to continue this work. And with that, let's go ahead and get this started. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to our other co-founder of Mazaska Talks. I have many hats, and we've done lots of work together, and I'm super honored to share this space with him again. We're still doing this work, and so I'm going to go ahead and let Matt Remle take it over.
All right, Wopila, Rachel, Mataki Epi. Chante Washte Nape Chiuzapi, Hawakia Wanatana Machiapi. Hello, everybody. Hope everybody is doing safe and well out there. Before we kind of get rolling, I do want to just put a prayer out there especially for our Navajo Pueblo relations who are getting hit really hard from this virus, and all communities here and abroad that are being impacted by this virus, and impacted by the healthcare systems and other systems that make our communities and other communities more susceptible to this virus. So totally honored to be here tonight with an amazing group of folks to talk about the frontline fight. You know, these folks are coming from the front lines, addressing the issues of pipeline, other fossil fuel fights in their communities, and you know, our inspiration to not only myself but people literally around the world. And we know that this week is the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, but for us Native folks, you know, every day is Unchi Maka Day, and we celebrate our mother every single day. So we wanted to bring some voices from the front lines to everybody. So I am not going to share too much. Just co-moderate with the awesome Rachel. Thank you, Rachel. And so first up, I'm super honored to be introducing my Tronwi, my auntie LaDonna Bravebull Allard, who is not only an inspiration to myself, my family, but to folks literally around the world. She very humble and says she just simply listened to the youth when they founded that Sacred Stone Camp in the fight against Dakota Access Pipeline, which she did, but was also an inspiration for folks literally around the world to the plight and issues that we're facing the community there in Standing Rock and throughout the Northern Plains. So I'm totally honored to have you here. In all honesty, I was a little bit nervous at first asking because Auntie is such a warrior. You know, she coming through surgery, coming through chemo treatment. I was like, man, I don't really want to bother her, but you know, sent that message and she just responded back something like, nephew, I got a lot to say. So I think that said it all. So LaDonna Bravebull Allard, thank you. I'll hand it over.
Dr. Yopi, I'm really honored to be able to speak. It's been probably a difficult couple months with the brain tumor and all of this other stuff. But my news today is having to live a life of I told you so. So today we had a new oil spill and the oil went into the Missouri River in Williston today. I am really upset about that because this shouldn't be happening. Even in this time of crisis that we're going through with the virus, where people are isolated and people can't do anything, and they have a new oil spill today. And it has contaminated the Missouri River. It is flowing into the Missouri River right now as I was looking at the new news releases. That really upsets me because we shouldn't have to live a life where we keep saying, I told you so, this is going to happen. And so in the last year, there has been at least 20 oil spills in North Dakota. The problem with the oil spills in North Dakota is they're not being reported. They do not have to report them. And we're watching, we're doing our best to keep everybody updated on what's happening on the ground. We are in court. The Standing Rock Sioux tribe is in court. They, as you know, we just won the process to the Army Corps' permit that it was illegal, like we said it was, and that they have to have a full environmental impact statement now. The next court hearing we are waiting for is to stop the oil flow. And we're hoping that we have some kind of decision coming in the next couple weeks. There's a lot happening. Nobody is sleeping. We have been watching across the river on the east side where the Dakota Access expansion is supposed to be starting, but there has been no work, no process at this time, which is a whole lot better. We have really good friends who live on the east side who give us reports all the time. I sometimes wonder if people think that, you know, oh, we stood up 2016, said this is not a good idea, you guys shouldn't do this, and then we all went to sleep. It's not like that. There is so much work. There's so much that has to be done. As we just now watched, as the man camps that are just, I'd say 45 miles from us are shut down because of the XL pipeline is not going through, has been a relief. We are still about one young girl every couple days that are missing here. And I keep on wondering about what's happening out there in the world. And all this, my personal stuff, all goes back to DAPL. When they sprayed poison on us at camp, they convicted the rancher of poisoning the eagle and buffalo now twice, but he was poisoning us too as he was killing them. So right now we're putting together a whole information of all the people who are at camp who have all had all these strange cancers because of the chemical spraying they did. And then, you know, I say bad things. I'm not a nice person. But like, so we got all these people protesting about staying home and being in isolation and wearing masks. I thought I should at least have the right to go mason or something. I shouldn't say that right. But it's just like, we didn't do anything wrong but stand up. The problem is, we're not going to back down. We cannot. When I went through surgery, I had a dream when they were taking out my brain. And in my dream, it said that we had to have the women sing, because the singing, the women have this healing component in their body that as they sing, it vibrates the earth and helps the earth heal itself. And then they said, have them dance, because as they dance hard, they vibrate the whole earth to wake her up so she can heal herself. And I thought about that when I woke up. And you see the amazing young people that have been out there videoing their dancing and their singing, and the young men who have been doing their songs. And then now you're seeing these places where there's no people and the animals are out walking around. There's places where the water was so muddy and it's clear. I think that with Native people, we have the ability to heal the earth. I don't care what anybody thinks. I do believe we can do that. And so in my dream, I had to make a toolbox. How do we live on this earth again with respect? How do we live with our world again? Because we forgot. The water can clean itself if we allow it. The animals can live if we allow it. We are the problem. So in a toolkit, how do we feed ourselves? The first act of sovereignty is feeding ourselves. Second, cleaning, providing, replanting our world again. I think these simple things, we can change the whole world. But I've also been saying, you know, as the United States is going through a crisis, and they are, their economy is failing, their government system is failing, their societies are failing. Oh wait, I don't see too much that's really good. Their education system is dumbed down. It's time for us to stand up, to teach people how to live on the earth again, to teach people how to feed themselves again, to teach people how to live as human beings again. And so in a toolkit that I'm creating has all of these components. All of these components go back to stories that our elders tell, to lessons that we've learned through life, through medicines and plants and everything we have here. I believe that we have the answers. And I do not think there should be any government structure, department, anywhere that shouldn't have a native sitting at their table or running it. Everywhere. We should be everywhere because we have it inside of us to heal this earth. That's what I believe. Or maybe a little crazy, but that's what I believe. So you can't say things like that unless you do them, right? So my goal is I'm planting 90 apple trees here on Standing Rock this year. I planted 70 trees last year, and I got the cutest chickens ever. I raised my own chickens. We are planting seeds everywhere. Because if there's a space, we're putting food in. We can do this ourselves. We don't need to wait for anybody. If you're waiting for somebody, you lost your empowerment. You see these women? They have power. They have not lost that inner power. And so, one of the first and foremost about the earth is compassion. And if we have compassion for our earth again, everything can heal. It just takes work. So, my Earth Day and all my insanity, I'm going down the river and picking up trash. Because I think each moment that you have, we can make a change. There is, I think I said, you know how Indian people are? We sing, we pray, then we'll come fight you. And if we're women, we'll fight you to the death if you mess with our children, our grandchildren. But we'll pray for you while we're doing it. I don't want anybody to think that I'm going to just stand back and do nothing. We are going to be putting signs up on top of the hill at Sacred Stone. Again, we do it every couple months, but we'll be putting signs up again against DAPL. DAPL has committed crimes against humanity, and I hope to, in all my days on this earth, to complete that, to remind them, to take them to court for that as we collect our evidence. The process, and I know everybody knows this is not something that you just say things and then just go back to your life. Every day there's work to be done. Every day there's coordination. The only thing that I learned through this whole process is we have to support each other. We have to support each other. And so that's why it's important for us to say, Frida, I got your back. Dee, I got your back. Hua, I got your back. Everywhere we go, we have to support each other as Indigenous people today. From the tip of Argentina to the tip of Canada and all the surrounding islands, we are one. I've been to Mauna Kea now 4 times. I've been up to Canada. I meet with all the people in South America. The more we stand together, the stronger we are. and we are a very strong force. And now is the time to change. But that's all I should say for now.
Thank you, LaDonna. Thank you for taking the time through everything that you've been going through in your health, and just continuing to do the amazing work that you do. So it's truly an honor to have you on here tonight. And so thank you. And again, she raised an important point, and she was speaking, you know, another point that we want to connect with all of this work is that the epidemic of our missing and murdered Indigenous women, you know, as these projects continue to happen and these these man camps continue to go up, our women continue to go missing, and it continues to not be talked about. And so you'll also, you know, hear other parts about how this is all connected. And so for those of you who are unaware of the epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous women, but people, there's so many different people you can talk to, that you can connect with. I know here in Seattle, Roxanne White is an amazing sister and auntie that's doing amazing work. And so do yourself a job and educate yourself on that. And so with that, let's go ahead and we'll go to our next guest speaker. Again, truly honored to share this presentation with every single one of you. Our next amazing woman, she wears a million hats. She's on the front lines. She is a tribal attorney. She's an Indigenous rights activist. She's been featured in Time magazine. She's the founder of the GNU collection, and the list of accolades for her goes on and on and on. So I'm truly honored to introduce you guys to Tara Houska. So.
This word. Is that on? All right. Good. Buju Ginawa, Jaboi Kwe Indigenous Cause, Makwa Ndide, Kuching Indigenous. My name is Tara Houska. I am Bear Clan from Kuching First Nation. It's so beautiful and wonderful to hear Auntie LaDonna's voice and to hear all of her wisdom. So thank you so much to Mazaska Talks and to Sulakshana for bringing us together. I think it's, as we're all stuck inside, it's just so inspiring and good to hear those words. You know, as you were speaking, I was just thinking about, you know, where we're at and where we could be, and you know, this reality that we have, but the reality that we can create. You know, the potential, the immense potential that we have, and especially as Native people, you know, the wisdom that we inherently have, but also can develop and bring to these tables, to these places where it's so absent. You know, I think that it just speaks volumes that we're in this pandemic and we're in this moment where, you know, we're seeing the disparate impacts to so many different people. So, you know, we're seeing that the folks that are dying are brown folks, black folks. The Navajo Nation is third in the country for worst impacts of COVID-19. You know, it's reflective of these greater disparities that exist within the system and the weaknesses within it. But it's also, you know, a moment to see that there are exceptions to rules when it comes to big oil. There are allowances to continue to destroy the earth in these moments. And somehow a pipeline, you know, trencher or a person who's cutting down the forest to put in an oil pipeline is just as essential as a nurse or a doctor on the front lines. You know, how is that possible? And I think it's possible because of the world as it exists now, as the society has established itself, the greater society around us. But there's so much that can be done for those of us who are trying to push in a different direction, right? We're trying to look in a different way and to be the best people that we can be in this lifetime that we have, the best humans that we can be in this lifetime that we have. you know, I think there's a lot to be said for walking the walk and not just talking the talk, to doing the hard work that it takes as not only frontlines resistors or people who are willing to stand up against the system and push for something different, but there's a lot of steps that we have to take in between, right? There's a lot of actions that we can all do to get to that place. And it's fine no matter where we're at in the process, you know, to think about, you know, right now it's springtime, right? We should be planting. We should be thinking about putting our seeds in the ground. We should be thinking about starting our little seedlings, you know, and getting those growing. You know, for us here in Anishinaabe territory, it's the time of the maple sapping. So we're still sapping trees and boiling syrup and getting that lifeblood and that medicine from the earth. You know, but that's just one small step, right? So there's a lot to be said for what it takes to actually decolonize and what it takes to actually present the other system that we're trying to achieve, right? We have to actually make real steps. And I don't think that we're ever going to achieve change comfortably. You know, that's something that I say over and over again when I'm in the greater quote unquote movement of people who spend so much of their energy into, you know, electoral politics, into incremental change, into, you know, these small policy changes. Yes, that all matters. Of course it matters, because we cannot pretend like the system does not exist. However, you know, if I were looking at an oppositional opponent and I was thinking about how do I force change, it seems like the vitriolic response that happens when people come together should tell us something about what's most concerning. You know, what's most concerning to big oil. They really, really don't like it when we build community together. They really don't like it when we're standing in front of their pipelines, in front of their workers. They really don't like it when we're calling out, you know, missing and murdered Indigenous women and building entire campaigns around it and elevating this to a national level. They don't like it when we show up in their media. They don't like it when we show up in their press. You know, they don't like it when we're willing to show that we're actually going to take these risks and put our freedom and our bodies on the line. Those things scare the hell out of them. You know, it terrifies them, and they spend millions and millions of dollars into propaganda, into media coverage, into all kinds of things to try to make their narrative the way that they want it to be. But, you know, we have tools that we use that are, you know, able to get our storytelling and able to get our messages and our voices out and our wisdom. You know, I think that to me, the hope I have for so much of this is not just to stop Line 3, which is the fight that I'm currently engaged in, you know, trying to protect our wild rice beds from tar sands expansion, thinking about the people at the source and their reality at the tar sands, you know, their contaminated waters and their cancer clusters and all of those terrible things that are happening there, and then, you know, the destruction here. I'm not just trying to, you know, focus on that one fight. What I really am hoping that we can do collectively as a movement is to shift our values and to shift our hopes for the future. You know, that's not just stopping and resisting. It's also, what are we going to make? You know, what are we going to do? Not just with solar panels and wind, but yes, all those things too. Solar panels, wind, food sovereignty, those are the steps to get yourself, you know, to get that autonomy, and that almost like unplugging, right? There's that, but then there's also, you know, what do we want to be? I think, you know, there's a lot of wisdom that the people of this world that have lived in balance with the earth for thousands of years have to bring and to share. You know, it says a lot to me that 5% of the world's population, which is Indigenous people, hold 80% of the world's remaining biodiversity. Just 5%, 80% of the world's biodiversity. You know, I think that we're all in various stages, unless you're an uncontacted tribe, we're all in various stages of being colonized or having colonization flow around us or tear at us or force its way into our lives and into the fabric of who we are, into this pain that it causes. But I also see this shift and this understanding and this healing that's happening with all these generations, away from some of the most violent acts, that we are figuring out how to heal, and we are figuring out how to decolonize, and we're figuring out how to walk that walk. And I'll say that I think one of the most hopeful things, I think all of us probably on this call have been asked, what gives you hope, especially when you work in environmental issues. And it's not even, I don't even think it's, I hate calling it an environmental issue. The environment is not an issue. The environment is you. The environment is everything. You can't have political discourse, and you can't have social justice, racial justice, gender equality, all those different societal ills addressed if there's not an earth to live on that can sustain us. If we don't have a earth, we are, we're nothing. We're not here anymore. But yeah, so when you work in this particular area, it's what gives you hope, right? Because there's all this science that tells us we're screwed, and that we're seeing mass die-offs, and people are already sticking to pavement in other countries because the ground melting, the pavement melting, and they're out of water, and they're drinking out of bottles, and Nestle's bottling up the world's water, and they're working in conjunction with the oil companies who are hell-bent on destroying it, and coal is still pushing out all of its toxins into the air and into workers' lungs. What do we do? How do we find hope? I find hope in every single person that's still willing to put their personal well-being on the line to defend the earth. I find hope in that. I find hope in people that are learning how to live again in balance, that are making those steps, however small, however large. I also find hope in seeing some of these youth that are badasses and shutting down parliaments and going to the sources and demanding a different way, that not only are they doing those things, they're also talking about hunting, and they're talking about tanning hides and living in a traditional way, and what that means, and actually taking the time to figure out, how do I do this? Because it's not easy. That gives me so much hope. And of course, being around our littles. So that's all I have. So miigwech, and please stop line 3. Visit stopline3.org.
Oh, wow.
Opila Tonka, and for inspiring words, and a happy early birthday, so we can flood your Facebook with happy birthday messages to our Time magazine influential person. But seriously, you do very inspiring work, very inspired by the work that you do, and thank you for all the things that you do. It's very appreciated. Next up, I have a good kola of mine coming from, I believe he's down in Pine Ridge now, a man of many places and many hats. Good kola, who founder of Lasro Indians, a lawyer, works with the Lakota People's Law Project, has taken on numerous issues over the years, and an inspiration to many, and a personal thank you to him. He early on created that Lasro Indians, brought me in to be our Northwest writer. So I've had a very good experience in time working with Chase and on many issues. And he also Itanchan of the Wigmunke Oyate there. All right.
Nobody knows that title.
I threw that in Lakota, so nobody harass you. All right. Chase Iron-Eyes.
Thank you so much. Thank you to the entire group that and the people who are organizing and hosting these efforts, not just for us, but all across Indigenous country. You see our relatives coming together and dealing with a crisis, a crisis of our times. The climate crisis is, of course, one of those crises, but coupled with the COVID emergency, there's a lot happening, a lot of moving pieces, and as we see, whoever's running President Trump's campaign, it's like a blitzkrieg. you know, the way that they do things is very calculated. And everybody that showed up for these, you know, let's reopen the economy, let's go against the advice of all the doctors, and let's put ourselves at risk because we have rights. You know, if you're alt-white or you know, you're in that privileged spectrum, which we hear, most of us in the indigenous or or oppressed worldviews, you know, those of us who are, we're in real time living the a decolonial experience that we are also defining, and we don't, the contours of which are constantly evolving and being made up by people like yourselves on the panel, other creative inspirations out there, other people who are reaching their breaking points too. We all have different breaking points and different, I guess, sets of circumstances that will compel us to, you know, take certain risks for the benefit of the protection of tribal sovereignty or treaty rights or inherent rights or natural rights or constitutional rights or human rights. It always seems that indigenous people, indigenous women really, are kind of the, you know, the harbingers or the creators of that energy and that impetus that causes everybody else to seek a path where we can, you know, liberate ourselves. You notice how the alt-right, the alt-white, they try to co-opt everything. It's just like when corporations took over hip-hop. Now they're trying to say that, you know, let us liberate these cities that have these democratically or blue controlled governments where they've got these protesters. They got Craigslist ad for protesters to go out. And these are the same type, these guys aren't just, you know, your average paid protesters. They're also racist. They carry Nazi insignia, and they're literally members of the KKK. They're the kind of people that sign up to work in man camps, or who the majority of the type of people, rapists and criminals that come with man camps. And we know that, you know, as an arm and an extension of violent extractive capital, that those man camps are set to go up in and around the Keystone XL pipeline areas that also intrude upon our territories as the Great Sioux Nation or the Lakota Nation. We have rights here based in law that authorize us to do certain things, like which, you know, during the Dakota Access Pipeline struggle, you saw the world was able to see how tribal sovereignty and treaty rights and indigenous nationhood or statehood or rights could be used as leverage, as a way to, you know, throw a stake in the ground or create a pivot, a point upon which, you know, when we engage these theoretical struggles in real life, like we were doing when, you know, when Sacred Stone happened, when the Dakota Access Pipeline struggle happened after December 4th, when no, it was not December 4th. I think it was December 31st when the Army Corps told us that if we didn't go back to the reservation, that we would be considered trespassers. After that order, we had never been in that liberated zone. I like to call it a territory where the federal government didn't know how to remove us because we were still strong in numbers. Well, now those same strategies and circumstances that surrounded the Dakota Access Pipeline, they've added that to their intelligence and their kind of body of knowledge and things that they study in order to figure out what the best way to dismantle our proactive efforts to protect Mother Earth and our rights. Guarantee you, they're watching every move we make, every step we take. But also, that's really just the life that kind of that we live. But I wanted to mention the struggle that I'm involved in, and it's these struggles where, you know, as Indigenous nations, as Indigenous peoples who are born into a struggle against oppression, a struggle against injustice. You know, we can't choose to see it any other way, and COVID is making that extremely horrifyingly clear, that those with wealth and privilege can isolate, they can go wherever and live a different experience than those who are those who have to trade their time and their labor and their energy here for another's capital. And so right now, there's all sorts of things coming together. Not only do we have the man camps, but we have the COVID emergency happening. And what I want to tell the people who are listening, and the audience, and maybe people who want to support everybody's struggle on this call, but in particular the fight against the Keystone XL pipeline, we're going to be challenging these man camps. There's many groups who publicly announced this. And so the moment that they come, people need to be vigilant. People need to be aware and be completely, you know, cognizant. Wana wakta, we got to be ready, because they've passed all these laws and they've tried to set up these circumstances. They've tried to set up traps and snares to catch us slipping, either in our speech, just like they did during you know, last child's camp. I was trying to be careful. We're completely aware of the National Defense Authorization Act, the Patriot Act, everything that gives, you know, the feds or those guys the authority to spy on people and violate people's rights. You know, we were monitored at the highest levels of intelligence in relative to the matters of national security of the United States, which includes its allies as well. These allies whose governments are also, you know, owned by the billionaires and the rich racist ruling class that is implementing and instigating this violent extractive agenda. So as you know, we can't talk too much about what we have planned for, you know, lawfully, rightfully, and in a morally authorized and spiritually authorized manner. We won't reveal too much about how we plan to defend those rights, but know that there are, you know, tens of thousands of people who are committed to going the distance, not only in KXL, but at Line 3, at Kinder Morgan, Trans Mountain. I want to give a shout out to Mayuk and Kanahus as well. Everybody else who's been participating in these Zoom meetings and these places where you can share, because we're all cooped up. We're all, you know, this is what it's like, kind of like what it's like doing time. Now, I didn't do a whole lot of time, but I have some experience with that, as many of you do. You know how it is when you got nothing to do up in there. But you know that again, that ethos, that substance that we recognize within us, that compels us to stand up, as LaDonna was saying, against any injustice, no matter what the odds are. We would take these cues from the women, because missing and murdered Indigenous women is an issue that needs to be women-led. But there are roles for men like myself, and those roles will become evident as we prepare to meet that threat, again, of rapists and criminals. Let us not forget, Trump's always pulling that jazz on us, calling Indigenous peoples racists, rapists, and criminals. That tricksy little habit. But anyhow, thank you so much, guys, for putting this together. We'll hang around for any questions, but I want to take up as much time as I'm allotted. I don't want to start going way over, you know what I mean? But it's really good to see you guys. I love you guys. Doksha.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Chase. Thank you guys for being on here. Everything that we're hearing again is we have to keep getting the word out there. We have to keep supporting this work. We have to keep being visible. We have to keep finding all of these other solutions to keep doing the work. And so with that, as we're moving across the states, we're over here in Washington. I'm excited to introduce our next person. I feel blessed that she's a local person. She's on tribal council for Puyallup Tribe. She's fighting the LNG. She makes amazing cinnamon rolls, and literally the list goes on. Her wit and humor are amazing, and she's on fire. She's awesome, and so I want to introduce Anna Bean from Puyallup Tribe.
Oops, I was muted. Sorry. Hisquo, Haxlahel Atati, Dufyayus Atati, I don't know why I'm told. Anyway, I was going to introduce in the language, Haxlahel, good day, Tootie D Seatsta, Anna Bean Seatsta. My name is Anna Bean. My Indian name means way over there. And so with Mazaska Talks, I'm getting my range out there and holding true to my Indian name today. I am a part of the Puyallup Tribe of Indians. I currently serve on the Puyallup Tribal Council. And I'm also a Puyallup Water Warrior, which is a grassroots made up of Puyallup members. To give a bit of an update as to what I'm understanding we are here for is we currently have in the Puget Sound Energy's liquefied natural gas plant down here on the Tacoma Tide Flats, which is where the Puyallup River meets the Salish Sea. And it really is at the tip of that point. It's within yards of our tribal land. It's directly across from our tribal marina. It's an 8 million gallon LNG facility, that a holding tank attached to pipelines that go throughout the city of Fife, the city of Tacoma. And we've been on this since about 2014. The Puyallup Tribe has been involved. I myself and other members of the Puyallup Tribe formed a group called the Water Warriors. We established in early April 2017, working alongside a lot of amazing grassroots. And I really honestly didn't know a whole lot about grassroots until I got involved on the LNG. And to actually be honest, how it got brought to me is initially, I was talking to Rachel this morning, is Rachel and Matt Remle, they were a part of getting a big, huge Stand with Standing Rock march that happened in, I want to say it was November 2016. And while I was there, we had just beat a methanol plant that they were trying to bring to Tacoma. And just for anybody who doesn't know about Tacoma, Tacoma is the second largest city in the Puget Sound. And we are the third largest city in the state. And the Puyallup tribal lands reside in the heart of this city. So to give you an idea of our level in where this is at, we are a very, it's not a rural area at all. We're in the heart of a major city in the state of Washington. So some of the things that we'd seen during what was happening over in Standing Rock, they're not the same here. People can't gather in the area so much because, there's roads and streets and freeways and everything like that is around everything that we're doing. And today is the opener for our crab season for our tribal members today. So they're out there right next to that LNG facility out there trying to harvest shellfish today. So to give a little bit of a background on, so I gave you the opening parts to that, and the background on the fossil fuel portion is we've been in this fight for quite some time. We've reached out to, you know, NCAI, AT&I, trying to get all levels of government to help us. You know, I started out prior to on tribal council working in the grassroots area, and I've been able to bring that and bridge that with government, that our own tribal government. So bringing what I know from being on the front lines to being on the front line of government for our people is very, it's a lot. It's and just thinking of, you know, every single day, what is it that we can do? And it's been very difficult in this fight against the Tacoma LNG facility as they continue to build without proper permits. And throughout the period of time, you know, we did our best to stop a majority of those. And not too long ago, did they get approval on the final permit that was needed from, it was the air permit that was needed. And so on that, now the tribe, along with the other environmental groups, we are appealing that. And I know we're talking a little bit about the COVID and how that's affecting, and that's completely affecting our appeal right now, as it's slowing down what's going on in the court system. And we don't foresee them addressing any of this until later on this year. We were gearing up and lining up for that just on the brink of COVID hitting the Pacific Northwest, which was early March. And so we've been staying busy and ensuring that we get information out and doing our part in here. But it is pretty difficult right now. I do have to say, I, you know, in listening to the folks who have spoke before me on LaDonna, she was mentioning, speaking of the waters are getting clearer. You're seeing animals in the street. I think I was just outside the other day and I seen an animal I've never seen. I can't even say what it was. It was something I've never seen before. And it was just running across my yard. And I was like, and this is what's happening with the, you know, the slowdown that I feel that we're in. And so I got off subject for a second, but I was just thinking about what LaDonna said and how that stuck with me. So then we're not only facing what's going on with the 8 million gallon tank of liquefied natural gas, we also are in the process of what's been going on, but with LNG by rail. And it's looking as though the final rule is going to be coming out approving that. And there's been a lot of issues along the way. I mean, the analysis, the safety analysis and the or adequate preparedness for any type of accidents, that they never get down to ever fully addressing our questions. They just keep telling us, you know, what they're going to do. And, you know, they say they have their people working on it, but they never properly address the things and areas of concern to us, like, you know, just LNG and facility, not in facility, LNG in the long run is never put this close to people. I think it's within the LNG facility that's down on our Tacoma Tide Flats is within a mile or two of preschools. And like I said, it's directly across this the waterway of our marina. And so it's like a lot of these things aren't factored. It's all about money. And when we talk about the money, you know, they haven't even fully worked out, but the taxpayers of this area are going to be responsible for a portion of what's going on down at the Tacoma Tide Flats. And a lot of people don't even know what's going on down there. It's just going to start showing up. And, you know, they could be responsible for up to 40% of the overall cost of this area, and with less than 2% of the LNG produced even being utilized for peak shaving. So that's a bit of a concern. We've been trying to get this from all angles to get people involved and active. But, you know, it's like we keep saying out of sight, out of mind, because from where I sit right now, which I am currently sitting in a governmental office right now for the Biel tribe. So I'm sitting on our ancestral land as I'm talking to you all. And within a few miles of me, there's an LNG facility that's been being built that a majority, unless you drive down that way, you don't see it. But it's hard to avoid it once you see it. Like, it's just a big, huge eyesore from anywhere you're at. And how people aren't asking questions is sometimes concerning to me. But, you know, the work doesn't stop, whether we have, you know, the restrictions of the COVID right now going on. We're still actively involved and engaged in doing everything that we can to stop this. And then where do we go from here when it goes all the way up? And it's just, the fight will always be here. It's no questions asked of us, no proper consultation. It's just been very discerning, like throughout the whole entire process. And you know, again, like I said, I had mentioned, you know, some of the folks that we've worked with throughout this whole entire process, and I'm really thankful for them. So I just want to mention some of them. Some of them had been, one of them had been mentioned earlier on. So we have Native Daily Network, the Protectors of the Salish Sea, Redefine Tacoma, Tacoma Direct Action, Climate First Response, 350 Tacoma in Seattle, Sierra Club, Students of the Salish Sea, Backbone, Two Spirits, and there's so many more. We do have, out of the 29 tribes in Washington, we do have 17 tribes that have signed on with us to support us in our efforts against the LNG facility, and many other organizations. You know, we've even gotten, I don't know what a letter does, but we did get a letter from Governor Inslee, you know, saying that he doesn't support it, but therefore hasn't stopped it. So it's time for people to see what's going on around them. Oftentimes we don't pay attention to what's outside of our home, but ultimately the earth is all of our home. And if we're not doing our best to protect it, then what are we doing? And the Puyallup people are considered the salmon people. And so ensuring that our rivers and our salmon runs are continuing to run has been what our people were set here to do. We were placed along the rivers to protect it. And with climate change and everything that's been going on, our salmon runs have been, you know, dissipating. And what we've been put here for is slowly leaving. And if that's not a concern for the people who are around here, I don't know. I don't want to run around saying the sky is falling, but technically, you know, our waters are running dry. Everything is just, you know, it's heating up. And so we've taken that pretty seriously here at the Puyallup Tribe. Just earlier this year, we had the Puyallup Tribal Council had approved for we had declared a climate emergency and in slowly identifying the actions that are be taken by our government to address climate change in this area. We have 6 to 7 entities that we oversee here. And we are before the shutdown, we were in process of implementing plans of how we were going to get ourselves to be more eco-friendly in our businesses and in our communities. And so it's been a lot of work that we were in prep for, that as soon as we're able to all get back together, we'll fight just as hard as we were in the first place. But even in the slowdown, we're continuing to work. And what I would like to ask of people is just to properly educate yourself on what's going on in your hometown, in your state. Find out the things that are going on. For us, anybody in Tacoma, Seattle, the Northwest, I would like everybody to look up what liquefied natural gas is, to understand fracking and how it's not good for the earth, and how it's definitely, if it's not good for the earth, it's not good for the people who inhabit it. And so that would be basically what I would ask of folks, is to contact your local governments, you know, city, state, federal. That's what we've been on. And understanding the harm that is going on in all of our communities. I'm happy to stand in solidarity with every single one of you that are here today in your communities. We all have different levels of things going on, and we all need each other's support. I know at times in days, you feel like you're alone and you're really not. And the biggest thing is I think, it's a reminder to folks that we are still here. We are the generations of our ancestors that they could not kill off. And I'm just thankful to be a part of today's discussions. I raise my hands to Matt Remle and Rachel Heaton for, getting this together, and all the folks that you guys work with to get this out there. And I'm thankful that we're able to communicate and be together, even in these times of social distancing. I'm thankful to just be here and speak on behalf of my people and Indian country in general. So I think that's pretty much all I have, is just to educate yourself, see what's going on, and find ways to participate. You don't have to be on the front lines. You can support those that are. And again, like Rachel said in the beginning of this, how she was thanking those. And I too, I thank all those folks that are working the front lines right now as we're in this pandemic. And I look forward to rejoining with you all in the future. Hoyaf Chad.
Wopila Taka, Anna. Appreciate your good words, and I appreciate all the awesome work that Puyallup tribe has done. I really see you all as leaders, not just as tribal nations, but as leaders, period, in addressing these various issues, not only with the LNG, but of the issue of climate change, protecting salmon, period. And being so welcoming, I appreciate it as someone from another tribal nation, that I've always felt very welcome down with the Puyallup peoples. And that action you mentioned, that I think where we first met was down in Tacoma, protesting that plant, is where I first really actually worked with Rachel and your brother, David. They had reached out after we did a mass action in Seattle and wanted to do something down there. And so we, Rachel's and I, kind of first project we worked on, and we really wanted to showcase, not only support for Standing Rock and Puyallup, but highlight how what's happening in Standing Rock, what's happening in Puyallup is happening all across our various communities. So it's very, very powerful day that was. So, and again, thank you for the good work. We put up that climate declaration that Puyallup tribe issued. Is also another thing that you all are leaders on. And thank you for that good work. I'm very honored to be introducing our final panelist. And I've had the pleasure of watching Kayah George. My paid job, I actually work for Marysville School District, and I had Kayah as a student in Marysville Getchell High School. So to watch her grow as a leader and is very inspiring, the work that she's been doing and taking on as it relates to the Trans Mountain Pipeline. Kayah George, and please, Kayah, forgive me for butchering these names here. Halth Lee, traditional name. She proudly carries the teachings of her Tulalip and Tuslail nations, which have inspired her to become a young Indigenous activist, environmental leader, scholar. And she's talked globally about the issue of climate justice and has spread the teachings of her nations to honor and care for the earth, while being a full-time student at Simon Fraser University. So Kayah, very proud of you, and thank you for being here.
Hopscoil Tanoya, Halia Queen Kushamain, Kayah George Queen's Na, Tinachin Kla, Dachlalip, Tinachin Kla, Sliwitet Asnach. Skalustan Man, Sitselsa Klan Chisha. On Hoplands Gwalwin Titsi, Heichka, Heichka Tan, Skake Tan, Slana Etan, Sweka, Heichka. Hi, everybody. My name is Kayah George, and my traditional name is Halia. I come from Tsleil-Waututh Nation and Tulalip tribes, and the language I was just speaking was the Squamish language, the language of my father's mother and my dad's side. That's a language I've been learning for the past 2 years now, both in university and with my grandmother. And I want to thank you, Matt, for that introduction. It's crazy knowing like how far we go back, you know, back when I was in high school, going into your office, getting top ramen and cup of noodles in the office. It's been really great to see you at Actions now in a different environment. It's been great, like for years now, we've been seeing each other at rallies, go from high school now to the rallies, now to the Actions. It's been really great. That kind of reminds me of how long my people have been fighting. My Tsleil-Waututh people are located in North Vancouver, Canada, and Tulalip is just north of Seattle. And Tsleil-Waututh has been opposing the Trans Mountain pipeline from coming through our lands and from an increase in tanker traffic by 7-fold. We've been fighting that for about half my life. Yeah, since I was around 11 years old, I remember my dad came to me and he said, Kayah, there is these people, they want to bring something to our land. They say it'll be good for the economy. They say it'll help our people, but it's going to increase oil tankers coming through our inlet, like our most sacred inlet. And as a people, as a Tsleil-Waututh people, when they came to us with the idea, we looked at it. We looked at the effects that might happen, and we looked at our love of our land, our culture, and our people, and it was 100% consensus no. And he told me, our people don't have a lot of money. We were told this could help us, but realizing that our land, our children, our future generations, our water, and our most sacred Tsleil-Waututh, our inlet, of not just for us, but for all of the nations along the pipeline, and our neighbors, our brothers and our sisters, all the other nations around us. We decided no, that we're going to do what it takes to protect our land and to protect our water and to protect our future generations. And since that was around 10 years, give or take, and since we've been fighting that pipeline, not a single pipeline has been built on our Indigenous traditional territory. And so long as we keep fighting, none ever will. That's what I was told. And since that day, my dad, my brother, my cousins, all my aunties, all my family, my grandma, she's been arrested 3 times. We've been fighting with everything we have. And I want to give and I'm so proud of my people for that. But I want to give, especially my grandma, she's a tough cookie, Amy George. She's taught me everything I know. I want to give more, talk a bit about that more. The inlet that our nation sits upon, sits right above right above our waters, and across the water there's an oil refinery. And it's really hard to see. Growing up, I had to paddle and grow up along the waters and have to see that, and have to see the smoke, that disgusting smoke, like just emitting from there. Having to grow up and see that was hard. And to know that if they bring a pipeline through the territory, that'll increase, as I said earlier, increase the tanker traffic 7-fold, increasing the chances of a catastrophic oil spill exponentially. And that's a risk we couldn't take. And not only did Tsleil-Waututh say no and oppose it, but they wrote a 1,200-page assessment using our facts, our laws, our culture, along with scientists. And we created an assessment saying why we say no. And the basis of that fact is that we we want to save the land and save the water for our future generations. We want to take care of our youth. We want to take care of our elders, and we want to take care of the water for the life of it itself. As I was told, the inlet that we sit on, that's our oldest grandmother of the Tsleil-Waututh people. Since I was a kid, since I was really young, the story was told to me that the first Tsleil-Waututh man was walking along the water and he prayed to Creator. He said, Creator, why do I have to walk this earth if I have to walk it alone? And he prayed and he fell asleep on the beach. And when he woke up, he had this urge to go dive deep into the inlet. And so he did, and he grabbed 2 handfuls of the essence of the inlet, 2 handfuls of the sediment. And he put it on some cedar branches, and he put it on the beach. And he fell asleep next to it in the warm sun. And when he woke up, there was a beautiful woman next to him. And that was our first Tsleil-Waututh grandmother. And that was the inlet itself. That's our oldest grandmother. And when I first heard the story, I was like, why does the girl have to be mud? Why do I? But my dad was like, no, we're all mud. I mean, we're not all mud, but we're all part of the inlet. All of us, all of the children, all of your cousins, all of your grandparents, for many generations back, we're all descended from her. And she takes care of us. As our saying is said, when the tide is out, the table is set. We have all we could need. We have our salmon, we have our clams, we have our waters to bless us, to paddle canoe on. It's there. She takes care of us, and she's always taken care of us. And so now it's our turn to take care of her. And that's why we're doing everything we can to protect her like we would protect a relative, like we would protect, like how he said, like how you want to protect your grandma. That's how we got to protect our inlet. And it's not just ours, it's everybody's. And we belong to the inlet as much as, the inlet belongs to us. It's a reciprocal relationship of love and protection and nurturing. And that's something that I was taught has been passed down as our duty for since time immemorial. And it's interesting because I'm a part of Gen Z, and we talk about it often as like, oh, this is the first, generation stepping up. And I'm like, oh, this is ancient. The teachings of protecting the earth, that's old. That goes way, way back. And I'm really happy that this generation, this is by far the most active generation and protecting our earth and stepping up for our ways. And I love it. And I love seeing our youth from all different nations, all different parts of the world, all different walks of life, standing in solidarity with each other, standing in solidarity with all of us, especially my Native brothers and sisters. Anytime I hear something's going on, I'm like, oh, I got your back. I got your back, and because I know you got my back. I know we're standing there, even if not physically, we're standing with each other in prayer. We're standing with each other with our hearts, with our songs. Anywhere you are, we're lighting smudge, we're singing songs, we're doing that ceremony and continuing that ways. Because I believe that's just as much a part of this is our language of revival, our culture revival, and bringing back our ways of who we are. That's why I personally, and many of my cousins took it upon ourselves to learn our language when we're speaking and when we're defending our lands and our ways. And so it's rusty, but that's why I try and do my language introduction when I talk. It's really rusty. Sometimes I get called out by the elders, like, that sounds a little funny. And I'm like, I'm working on it. But I think it's just as much, it's really important when we talk about revival and restoration, that we talk about our culture and our ceremonies and our language and our ways. And I actually, my dad, I was talking with my dad. I usually try and talk with my dad or cousins, sometimes before I speak, and I'll just say, like, how is everything going? Like, is there anything happening, still happening? And in Tsleil-Waututh, we've taken Canada to court, and we've been in court for many years now fighting. And I'll say something about Tsleil-Waututh. We're a small nation of about roughly 500 people. We were, once at the time of contact, we were, as I was told, 15,000 people. We were wiped down to 13 people, and the 500 of us are descendants of those 13 people. And so sometimes it seems like a David and Goliath fight. We're 500, we're in a small nation fighting a massive industry, and bringing them to court and bringing the government to court. And we're fighting with everything we have because that's what we believe in. And we're standing in solidarity with all of our brothers and sisters in that same pursuit, in that same fight to protect what we love and to protect what we believe in. And for more, and I just want to throw in a quick way you could help out. Raven Trust is an organization that raises funds for the legal fees of nations fighting for their lands and for their waters. So I think that should be included in the chat. And for more information on our 1,200 page assessment and on what's happening in my nation, Tsleil-Waututh, there you can go to TWN Sacred Trust, I believe, .org. And so if you want a bit more detailed information on that, you could go there. But I just want to say how thankful I am to have spoken with all of you and to hear all of your stories and hear all of the good messages. I'm really touched, and I'm really grateful. And I think it's so inspiring for me to hear that so many people are fighting in so many different areas and so many different places, and they come from so many different walks of life. Hearing all these different languages, all these different cultures, all these different people, it lifts my heart up. And as I said in the beginning, there's a phrase in my language. It's on Hotland Squallowin. You raise my heart up. You lift me up. My heart is happy. And I want to thank my elders who fought hard for me to be here and be able to speak here today. And I want to thank all the panelists before me. Again, I'm really grateful to be speaking with such great people and such amazing role models. So with that, I want to say, raise my hand, say, An Hotland Squallowin. My heart is lifted, and Houska, I lift you all up. Houska, Houska. Thank you.
Houska, wopila tanka Kayah. Very, very powerful, very moving, and I'm getting all kind of emotional listening to all the amazing speakers here. And you know, it's not like a 9-to-5 job for folks here. You know, this is about life, and it comes through that it's coming straight from their chante. And I respect, admire, and appreciate each and every one of you for the amazing and good work that you all do. I'm gonna do just a little bit piece. We've been getting tons of questions around how you can support. And we've been trying to, in the link, or excuse me, the chat, put links to the different fights and struggles that are happening and how you can either get more information or directly involved with those particular campaigns. But one thing, you know, we're huge believers in out here with Mazaska Talks, with Rachel and other folks, is that you can have an impact right in your home communities without having to, you know, travel to various communities and stuff like that, especially by taking on the banks, the insurance companies. You know, none of these projects, none of these companies can go build a multi-billion-dollar pipeline without the backing, the financial backing of numerous banks, without the backing of insurance companies and stuff like that through loans. And so, you know, we also understood and understand that these corporations, these banks and stuff, they don't, what moves you and I through the beautiful, amazing words that were shared here tonight, the history, the culture, the teachings of elders, of grandparents, of the connection to land, that means absolutely nothing to these corporations. It means nothing to these banks. The only thing that they are motivated by is the profit motive. And so that's why with Rachel and others, we decided to take this straight to the banks and encourage people to do whatever they can, whether it's taking your own personal money out of the likes of JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America. You know, they're the three largest financiers and profiters. You know, these banks are both financing and profiting off the destruction of our lands, the destruction and desecration of water, of sacred sites. They're profiting off of all these through financing these various projects. And so we encourage individuals to take their money out, but then decided to kind of take the next step, go to the next level, and you know, take it to the Seattle City Council and present it to them in a way that, you know, we had got them to pass a resolution on that Dakota Access Pipeline. But we told them, you know, you kind of have to put your money where your mouth is now. It's not, you can't simply just say, yeah, we support Standing Rock, while at the same time you're giving $3 billion, have a multi-billion-dollar account with Wells Fargo that is helping to finance this pipeline. And so through a pretty intense campaign, we were able to get Seattle to commit to ending its $3 billion a year relationship with Wells Fargo, and then try to spread that movement to other communities. And a lot of panelists on here have been involved with many divestment campaigns, but that's just one tool. You know, we kind of believe in using whatever tool that you can to fight for the protection of our lands, of our Onshimaka. You know, one thing that we are pushing tribes to look into is tribally owned banks. You know, there's no reason that we need to be sovereign nations giving our money to these Wall Street banks who right now are getting a bailout, you know, from this coronavirus. You know, these oil companies are set to get bailed out. Well, that never happens to us. You know, if someone falls behind on their rent, you know, they're not going to bail you out. You know, you're going to get kicked out. But our tribe should be looking into tribally owned banks so we can manage our own assets, as well as we're pushing Seattle, and we worked with Jackie Fiedler down in the Bay Area to push for public banks to get our cities and stuff out of Wall Street banks for good. And also so that we can have a hand in writing up those various charters, how that money, how the would be invested back into our own communities, whether that's for homeless shelters, low-income housing, wildlife, and stream restoration, and those sort of things. You know, you have the ability to go out and do things like that. You have the ability to go to your city council now and say any of these pipelines that you've heard about, KXL, Trans Mountain, DAPL, and just get them to pass a simple resolution that says if that bank is going to finance any of those projects, then those banks cannot submit to take any contracts with the city, with the state, with your tribe. You know, that's one way to put serious pressure on them. Last year, we in Seattle saw that the Green New Deal on the national level wasn't really going anywhere. And so a number of us decided to push it on a local level and see what we could do with Seattle. And so we got Seattle to pass our own kind of version, a modified version of the Green New Deal, and set us on a path to be fossil fuel free, climate pollutant free by 2030. A pretty aggressive plan, but you know, that's the kind of path that we've set ourselves on. So these are things that you can go back into your own communities, your own tribe, and pass similar resolutions that look at things like just transition for workers, that look at the impacts of or uplifting the voices of the most impacted in your community by the burning of fossil fuels. The next piece that we're working on here is all that fracked gas you heard about up in Kayah's father's land. You know, a lot of that fracked gas coming down to the West Coast comes from British Columbia and Alberta, and the bulk of Seattle's fracked gas that we burn in our homes and buildings comes from there. So next thing that we're pushing here in Seattle is a complete and total ban of any fracked gas coming into Seattle via the Puget Sound energy, and push the city to transition to 100% renewables in replace of those fossil fuels. So these again are type of things that you can do right at, in your own communities. We're totally happy to work with any communities on how to develop various toolkits to pass similar resolutions, ordinances, etc. in your own communities. But most importantly, you know, is to be a good relative, you know, to all relations, you know, to take care of one another, to take care of the earth. You know, that's what, you know, we're all in this together. So I know we've gone a little bit over time. Oh, and this week there's also going to be some additional stuff with around Earth Day, a bunch of live streams and stuff like that through the Stop the Money pipeline and other organizations. I know some of the panels here might have some stuff that's going to be featured there as well. So maybe in the chat, we'll put up the link to that. So, and the insurance companies, we're going to do a follow-up piece with Sulakshana is really orchestrating and smiling there. I did not letting you off the hook campaign against these insurance companies. We talk a lot about the banks, but we would go after these insurance companies too, because if any of these projects can't get insurance, they don't happen. So be looking for that. And Sulakshana, I'm looking to you to see if we're getting the wrapper up. Any question, any following additional comments from any of the panelists, but thank each and every one of you for your beautiful words and work that you do. Dakwasa. Pass back to you, Sulakshana.
I think we are out of time here today. I know we got a lot of questions. We'll save those, follow up with you individually or in our follow-up email. And with that, I think we wish you a good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Make watch to everybody. Be well, be healthy.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Sage and cedar blessings to you all. Oi.
Oi.
Okay, I am closing the meeting.
Panelists, we'll be following up with you soon on some additional stuff we're sending your way, okay?
Yes, we'll follow up with all of you guys.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.